Hello, everyone. Hello. I think we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's program. First thing I want to do is welcome you all to the Ennis Heritage Society and to the first lecture of our winter series. And I want to thank the First Presbyterian Church of Ennis for allowing us to have our event here this evening. It's really been, we have been trying to have them at the Ennis Public Library, but we don't have to, work around construction. So it's very nice of the First Presbyterian Church to have us. So I'd like to invite Steve Knatzer up to give an invocation, if you would, please.
Let's bow our heads. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this day, this time of season, for this gathering, for this society. Bless us as we go forward and watch over us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Steve. By the way, I guess I should have said that my name's, in case you don't know, my name is David Sacha, and I'm the recording secretary for the Ennis Heritage Society. And so I'm the one that bothers you all with those email notices. Either I do or Heather Fira, who I think is out checking people in, as the corresponding secretary. We're the ones that sort of get the word out about our different programs. So I want to, again, welcome you all. And to mention that Ennis Heritage Society is in its 43rd year. That means we were established in 1981. Some of you all weren't born yet, so I'll give you a little history on that. Welcome. We're grassroots. We're established in 81 as a grassroots volunteer organization dedicated to promoting the history of Ennis and the heritage of the people of Ennis. And to put that into context, that was before there was a Main Street program. That was before there was any downtown revitalization. That was before there were any designated historic districts in Ennis. So, and the Ennis Heritage Society was part of all of those initiatives to get the recognition of our heritage here in town. So we're pleased to carry on the society in its 43rd year. And we are excited about being able to have programs such as this lecture series, which I think now is in its 3rd year or 4th year. So we have 2 more lectures planned. We have one in February, I think it's February 20th, and one March 20th. But it'll be the 3rd Thursday of those months. You'll be getting an email from me or Heather, so you don't have to write it down. So there'll be announcements about those lectures soon, and they'll be about local history and local heroes. So, and then as more introduction for this evening, I want to thank one of our new board members, Logan Treadaway, for making us aware of tonight's speaker and encouraging us to schedule him for tonight's talk. So I'm going to turn this over to Logan. He's going to introduce our speaker. So thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for being here today. Thank you, David, for letting me have the opportunity. I am Logan Treadaway. I'm on the board of the Ennis Heritage Society, and I also want to thank our board members for giving me the opportunity for getting David Stacks up here. And Davey, thank you for letting him come up here, and I'm glad that you had safe travels coming up here on 45. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce David, and then David will come up here and he will give us a wonderful presentation about the history of the Texas Prison Rodeo. Okay. David Stacks was born and raised just down the road in Freestone County in the town of Teague, Texas. He began his employment with the Texas Department of Corrections in 1979, beginning assigned with the Diagnostic Unit. He rose to the ranks of lieutenant, captain, assistant warden, and director of training, and retired while position of deputy director of management operations, having worked 30 years at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Corrections institutional divisions in the elevation of promotion allowed assignments at the Ramsey, Retrieve, Ferguson, Torres, Darrington, and Eastham units. After retirement, David continued his work in the field in inmate management, becoming an employee of Management Training Corporation in the capacity of warden. He managed a facility responsible for the custody and care of inmates of the United States Marshal's Office and several detainees under the umbrella of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and was requested to, and David served many years on the board of directors for the Texas Prison Museum until such time he was requested to become the director of the Texas Prison Museum in Huntsville, Texas. And it's his capacity as director of the Texas Prison Museum in Huntsville that he's learned so much about the history of the Texas Prison Rodeo. I am pleased to turn tonight's microphone over at him. From his humble beginnings in 1939 to its legendary status of the Wild West show behind bars. The Texas Prison Rodeo was never more than just a rodeo. It was a testament in resilience, camaraderie, and Texas-sized entertainment. David will take questions after the presentation, if time allows. And David has a video presentation of the Texas Prison Rodeo to share with us. And David, the floor is yours. Thank you for letting me have it.
Thank you, Logan, and thank you, David, and it's good to be here. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity, the museum, to come up here and address your group. I will do my very best to give you a real good history of the prison rodeo. As Logan said, I'm the director of the Texas Prison Museum, but don't let that impress you one bit. I can't even spell curator, okay? I'm just a retired old warden is all I am. And I was very fortunate to have a good career. I grew up under some really old-timey wardens that taught me the very basics of human nature and how to treat people. And I give them all my little bit of success I had. I owe it to them. But I will do my best to stay focused on the prison system as far as the rodeo, how it came about, why it came about, and what kind of brought its demise. And then, as Logan mentioned, I asked them if I could bring a little video clip. We have like a 25-minute video clip that we show regularly in our museum. I'm not going to present that till at the end of my presentation. If you folks want to stay around and watch it, you're more than welcome to. I don't have to be anywhere till sometime before midnight before my wife starts calling and find out where I'm at, okay? But if you don't, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But I don't know, how many in here ever attended the rodeo? And what were your thoughts of it? It was pretty wild, wasn't it? Entertaining?
Oh. It was the original tailgate party.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Well, the rodeo started by a gentleman named Marshall Lee Simmons, and I'll give you a little more history on Mr. Simmons too, because he's not known for this other important thing that he orchestrated, but he started the rodeo when he became what they called back then the general manager of the prison system. That would equate to the director today as far as title is concerned. He hailed from Sherman, Texas, and came to Huntsville. And what he found was some deplorable conditions. Morale was bad, high escape rates, all of those things, unfortunately, that no one wants to have in a prison system. But the rodeo started for one reason only: to help the morale of the inmates in the prison. Because all they did was get up in the morning, go to work, come in. They were so tired they went straight to bed. That's what we want inmates to do: be tired at the end of the day and go to bed. They don't cause any problems. But he started this in 1931, and it was primarily to help the morale of the inmates at the Huntsville unit, which is the original unit that was built in 1848. It's still being used. That is where the executions occur as we speak. He invited a few local folks to come to the rodeo, and it was such a success as far as just, man, this is something you ought to consider doing. And after 2 years, they decided, well, you know what? I think we're going to do that. Because you have to remember, at that time, they didn't provide any funding whatsoever for inmate education purposes. There were no library books other than what might have been donated to the prison system. There were no educational materials whatsoever, from basic reading, writing, and arithmetic. So the monies that was generated by the rodeo went to the process of buying education material, library books, and things like that. And in fact, because of that, they didn't have the ability to hire teachers because that was unheard of. So the inmates who had the ability to read and write were the instructors. Okay, but that's the reason that the whole rodeo started, was to give just a morale booster for the inmates, because there was a lot of mutilations, there was a lot of escapes. It just, he knew they had to have some relief from the monotony of being in prison. And when it started in the baseball field. A lot of people don't know this. At the Huntsville unit, where the arena was, actually the prison system had a semi-pro baseball team. They played hardball, and they played against Houston, Conroe, Bryan College Station, and they always had home field advantage. Imagine that, you know. And they eventually, though, to their prosperity, you might say, there were a few professional baseball players that ended up going to prison for narcotics and things. I want you to know, we won the state championship that year. And we actually, Mr. Simmons allowed them to play the championship down in Houston. They beat the Houston team 2 out of 3. So that arena where the baseball was played eventually became the rodeo arena. And when it first started, they couldn't build enough wooden bleachers. I mean, they had to turn people away. And back then, the prison system had their own sawmill. They had their own rock crushers. Most of that was by sledgehammer. But all of that stuff, they built like 2,000 seats like within a week to be able to take on more of the audience that wanted to attend, because they were turning just hundreds of people away. Eventually, and in its heyday, I would say in the 50s and in the 60s, there was well over 100,000 people that attended that rodeo in 4 Sundays. That was a huge economic boost to Walker County, to Huntsville. Of course, in its heyday, they raised, $450,000 in the 50s was a lot of money. A lot of money to me now, okay? But that was kind of how it all started. And you might want to ask, well, how did they get the equipment? How did they get livestock? They brought in live, wild livestock from the farms. If you don't know much about the prison system, there was old plantations that the state of Texas purchased years ago that became property of the prison system, still is, and that's where they had their farms. And they were trying to be as self-sufficient. Well, these wild animals would be brought in, and that's what they used for their livestock. That lasted till in the late 50s, early 60s. That's when they started going out on commercial livestock. The amount of inmates that got injured were plenty, like any other rodeo you see today. There were only 2 deaths as a result of that tenure from 31 to 1986. The events, early on, they had calf roping. They had, goodness gracious, it eludes me right now, barrel racing. But they eventually ended up doing away with that because that wasn't a big entertainment thing for the audience. So what they stuck with was the primary things, the wild milking contest, okay, where they would let out 10 steers, and inmates, groups of 3, had to catch the steer they were assigned to, catch it, hold it, milk it, and run it to the other end. It was pretty wild. And you see a lot of that today in some of the rodeos, some of your local rodeos, but it's usually just 1 cow. Well, these were 10, and it was pretty wild, okay? Another event they had was, of course, the saddle bronc. They had the bear bronc. They had the bull riding. They had what they called a chariot race. And what they did, they hooked up the chariots. We had both of the chariots that they used in our museum. They would hook up these two chariots, and these old two convicts would get in the chariot and they'd hook it up to a wild cow. And the first one to get to the other end would win. Well, those wild cows didn't like being hooked up to a chariot, and they sure didn't like seeing thousands of people around them hollering at them. It was wild as well, okay? So the rodeo, probably one of the greater things that came out of the rodeo was the entertainment. I don't know how many of you may have seen some really good entertainers, but in the
67 and 68 Candy Bar.
y'all know who Candy Bar is? Yes. I bet most of men in here do, probably. Candy Bar was a very popular exotic dancer. I'm being politically correct here. And she ended up coming to prison doing 15 years for having 2 ounces of marijuana. Now, the reason she ended up coming, I'm kind of getting on a rabbit's trail because you brought it up, but the reason she came down here with so much time, a lot of the wealthy men in the Dallas area would go watch her dance. And these highfalutin wives didn't like that, and they were able to get her set up, and she ended up doing 15 years in the penitentiary. Now, what I find unique about that is, as soon as she got out, guess where she came back? We hired her to come back and perform for the convicts. She was quite a good singer and a good dancer.
She only did 3 years. Right?
Yeah. She did, I think it was about almost 4. Almost 4. And she was one of the Glory Girls in the band. They had a Glory Girl band. Man, I got so much information I'm going to try and stick to the rodeo, okay? I don't want to get off too many rabbit trails, but Candy Bar was one of our entertainers. John Wayne, when he was making the movie Alamo, he came and was a presenter at the rodeo. Goodness gracious. George Strait only performed one time. You know why? Because his name went pew, and they couldn't afford him anymore, okay? Oh my God, Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, Gene Watson, Willie Nelson, Jimmy Dean, Dizzy Dean, the professional baseball player. There are so many, I can't even name them all, but they had some good high quality. Tennessee Ernie Ford came. Actually, he went to church that Sunday and sang in the choir with the inmate choir at the walls before his performance. But yes, there was a lot of great entertainers that came. Probably Tom T. Hall was one of the ones that liked to come down and perform the most. I think he did like 5 or 6 different trips to the rodeo. The Judge, when they just started out. Johnny Cash.
No Johnny Cash? Oh, you kidding? Right?
Yes, Johnny Cash. Merle Haggard. Of course, they felt back at home, you know. But the entertainment was very good, and that was a big draw, just not the rodeo. Now, what a lot of people don't also know about our rodeo is that, have you ever heard of the Louisiana State Penitentiary in Louisiana, more commonly referred to as Angola? They still have a rodeo. They mirrored their rodeo after ours, okay? So, yes, the rodeo was a big attraction in Texas. I think Heather, I don't think she'll mind me saying, I think she told me earlier her mom and dad, their first date or maybe second date, they went to the Huntsville Rodeo, you know. So that was the thing to do back then. Let me talk to you about the convicts. When they first started, Mr. Simmons was a very good lawman from Sherman, as I mentioned, kind of the salt of the earth type guy. And when they first started the rodeo, he would only allow inmates who had ranch hand experience to participate. And eventually, though, he loosened up the reins a little bit, and he allowed all the inmates in the system to request to compete. And because of that, they had, usually in August, first part of September, they had a competition. They would take the inmates up to the East Town unit, and they would have them compete. And whoever were the best, had the best skills, you might say, in those events, were the ones who got to perform before the audience. And the reason for that, obviously, is because they were charging admission and they wanted to put on a good show. So it was very interesting. There was a guy, an inmate by the name of O'Neill Browning. He was doing life. He won the Top Hand Award, I believe it was 7 times. The last time that he rode was in '86, and he was 77 years old. He was a bull. I'm telling you, that man was tough. The rodeo, what brought its demise? Politics, basically. We had a board member who chose to, he just didn't like rodeos. And he was able to get the rest of the committee, the board, to say, we don't want rodeos anymore. We're not in the rodeo business, so they did away with it. Now, you'll read, and there is some truth to this, the rodeo arena has some cosmetic flaws. It was made out of concrete and brick. Some of the concrete underneath the stadium, because you got to remember back then when they poured concrete, it was all by wheelbarrows. They mixed it, they poured it, they built the frames out of 2x6 and 2x8s and 2x10s. Some of that started to flake after many, many years of being in existence. That was his justification to get rid of it, but he basically didn't want us to be in the rodeo business anymore. What's unique about it is when they got ready to tear it down, they couldn't tear it down. It was too well built. The doggone rebar in it was about that big around. They eventually were able to tear it down, and the only thing that exists there now is a field where the rodeo arena was. They've put up a fence there, divides it in about half, and on the side of the unit is where they park vehicles that need mechanical help, or they need body work, or they're going to salvage them off. The other side, they have planted trees and stuff and kind of paid a homage to the location of the rodeo. The rodeo, I guess you could say one of the interesting, as a warden, I still marvel at how they used to do things. There was a guy in prison, y'all may have attended this one. He was in the 82nd Airborne. He convinced our director at the time, O.B. Ellis, you give me an opportunity to jump out of a plane, I'll land it right in the middle of the rodeo arena. Well, they let him have 3 tries. The closest he got was a block and a half. Okay? But they let him try it on one rodeo day, and he ended up on top of this older couple's house, and they heard a thud, and they went outside, and here's this guy, I'm trying to hit the rodeo arena, you know, and they went and got him. But, I mean, I just can't believe, me as a warden saying, heck no, I'm not going to allow a guy to jump out of an airplane. I mean, oh, Lord. But those were some of the unique events that they had. Obviously, the Gory Girls, I don't know if y'all, I'm going to ask you to research your Texas Monthly magazine. There was an article on the Gory Girls. They went all over the state of Texas playing for civic groups and things of that nature. And they were quite good. Candy Barr was the drummer, okay? She was the drummer. And she was a young girl. What's unique again about Candy, when she came down to the prison, you know, she was an exotic dancer, had a lot of money. She brought 2 big old suitcases thinking she was going to be able to wear her clothes. And they said, no, that's not allowed. So she started wearing the same clothes everybody else did. But the other thing about the prison system, as far as the rodeo, each unit had a country and western band. Some of them had a jazz band. Some of them had a blues band. And those bands would perform what they called the midway. If you've ever been to the state fair, you got the midway right in front of the prison there, which is 12th Street. That's where they would set up the bands, and the bands, just one band after another all day long, would play for the audiences. And also, what I find unique, because I worked 7 of those rodeos. What I thought was unique about it is the inmates that sold the cushions to the people that wanted to have a cushion to sit on, or the bulletins. They were just amongst, thousands of people, selling stuff and collecting money, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, But the prison system had a way of dealing with people who didn't want to follow the rules, which is not necessarily allowed anymore. Okay, I won't go into great detail there, but there was a lot of repercussion for someone who would not want to follow the rules. The goods that the inmates used, some of them, if they were from West Texas or from a ranch, they had a saddle, they would allow their family to bring the saddle in. If they had spurs, they allowed them to bring their spurs in. Those inmates that didn't have that type of equipment, the prison system was responsible and made the saddles for them. They made the chaps for them. The girls at Goree would make the striped shirts that you'll see if you want to stick around and see the video. It was self-sufficient as much as we can at that time throughout the prison system, just not the rodeo. The bulletins that were printed by the print shop. Okay, the raincoats that were given for, I think it was 50 cents, were made by the prisoners. It was contained and self-produced. The rodeo, I guess one of the most interesting things of the rodeo that I recall was I got to meet Sidney Poitier. There were several movies made during the rodeo. One of them was Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. The other one was Urban Cowboy with Travolta and Deborah Winger, I think was her name. So I got to meet them. I got to meet Kevin Costner, because he and Clint Eastwood did a film there. Steve McQueen was before me. I couldn't see him. But there was a lot of big-time stars that came to do movies there, let alone the ones who performed. So it was quite a good event for the general population. We had people coming all over the United States to see this. In fact, when NASA was getting started, the cosmonauts from Russia who were partnering with the Americans, they took the Russian delegation up there to watch the rodeo. They had no idea what a rodeo was. They did after they left. They thought it was a bunch of nut Texans, getting on a wild animal and trying to do it. Probably one of the very most unique and most popular, though, event was what they called Hard Money. Now, Hard Money was an event where they had a Brahma bull, and they had a group of inmates, usually about 35 to 40 inmates with white pants, and they'd have a red shirt on. Okay. Now, whether red is an aggravating color to a Brahma bull, I don't know if that's true or not, but we sure made it look like it does. Okay. And the object of this event was to be able to obtain the tobacco sack that was tied between the horns of the Brahma bull. And so you have all these men out there with their red shirts, and they let this wild Brahma bull out there. And again, if you want to watch the video, you can see some of them didn't fare too well. But whoever was able to retract that Bull Durham sack, typically it was $50 in there. But it was not unusual for the entertainers or some of the politicians that came to add money to that. And there was one year, I believe it got up to $1,000. Well, $50 in the penitentiary back then, that's a lot of money. $1,000 is a whole lot of money, okay? But that was an event that was kind of toward the end. It was one of those events that everybody waited to see. It's kind of like the bull riding that you see today at the rodeos. That's kind of the big popular event. I've got a couple things I want to say, but before I do, just to keep y'all engaged, do y'all have some questions about the rodeo you'd like to ask me at this point? Anything's open. I'll be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
What was the last rodeo?
1986.
82?
86. Yes, sir. 1986. Mhm.
One of the things I haven't heard you mention was the clowns.
Yeah.
And the clowns they'd risk their lives for the riders, but they would do some of the stupidest things.
Yes.
Blowing candles, shooting at each other.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were the entertainment.
One of the most popular clowns back in the 30s and early 40s was a guy named Billy Snuff Garrett. Well, Billy didn't make it one year because he and 20 others escaped. And he didn't fare too well on the end of that escape. He was doing a life sentence, and he and a guy named Clarence Redwine, I don't know if you ever heard of Clarence Redwine. Clarence Redwine was a very rough and tumbler, just hoodlum, thug, whatever you want to call him these days, to the point where he had a guy ended up chopping his head off. He was in the dining room at the Retrieve, and he had threatened the cook about something. I think it was a gambling debt or something, and he refused to pay the cook the money. And the cook went and said, "You gonna pay me that?" He said, "You leave me alone, or I'm gonna do something to you." So the cook went there and got a sugarcane knife, sharpened it up, and while he was just finished eating, he come up behind Clarence and whack one wick with that sugarcane knife, and his head fell in his plate. He leaned this way, and his Lucky Strike cigarette still in his fingers. Got a picture of it. It's pretty interesting to see. Yes, sir.
What happened to the morale in 1987?
I'm sorry?
What happened to the morale in 1987?
There was a lot of things going on, and this is, I don't know how long I have. I don't want to ruin y'all's evening. There was a lot of things going on in the prison system. We were getting bombarded with class action lawsuits from writ writers, from everything, from our mail to our visitation. I mean, anything that had to do with our prison system, it was being bombarded with lawsuits. Yes, we had a judge over in East Texas who, thank God he's dead, Judge William Wayne Justice. He was a liberal from over that area. Went to UT. I like UT. It's a little liberal for me, but I like their football team. But he was like a C grade performer in law school. He ended up becoming a federal judge through Lyndon Baines Johnson. And he's the one who caused all the rigmarole with the youth offenders out there with the boys' school, closing it down, and then he started attacking the prison system. And there were some good things that came out of it. I don't want to knock him all the way, but the majority of what he touched, it caused havoc in our system. From 1984 to 1987, we had 90 inmates killed because we had to change and conform to the way the federal government thought we should run a prison. That's the problem is you got some of these, I won't get on my politics. There are some people who try to put their nose in stuff they have no idea what they're doing, but they have the power to enforce it. And when they do, bad things happen. And so to answer your question, I'll try and answer it. They were so tied up in litigations, the inmates didn't like William Wayne Justice. They still don't like William Wayne Justice, even though we've been dead for years. What he calls the inmates that I grew up with, wish we could go back to the way we used to operate the prison. There was a lot more freedom internally in the prison system. So the morale suffered a little bit behind that, obviously, particularly those guys from the rural areas. Today, people always ask us, do you think it'll ever come back? There's no way it's ever going to come back. Two reasons. One, they're not going to spend the money for the infrastructure to build an arena. Two, with the type of people we have coming to prison now, all they do is play video games and sit at a table and don't talk to their wife or their girlfriend, and they eat too many McDonald's burgers and they're fat and out of shape. I mean, that's a fact. A lot of them are children of drug abusers, and they're on psychotropic medications, which make them sun sensitive. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But primarily, it would be a big security risk. I mean, if we could certainly rent, I say we, I'm not part of the prison system, okay? It's 30 years, I still feel like I am sometimes. They could rent an environment, an arena, but I think the security of carrying something like that nowadays would be beyond their scope of feeling comfortable doing that. Okay.
So, I wonder,
Yes, sir.
were there prisoners from other state prisons that came to?
No, sir. Just strictly. You had to be sentenced to the state prison system. Now, what they did do, the inmates, we talked about improving the morale. The inmates that were on farms south of Houston, the Darrington, the Ramseys, the Retrieve, the Clemens, usually one Sunday of that month, they would bring all those that wanted to attend, that met the criteria to attend, they would bus them up to Huntsville to let them watch the rodeo. That's where the morale was improved, letting these people see this. Then they would do the ones around the Huntsville area. Then they'd do the ones up around the Cofield, the Anderson County area, bring those down. And what amazes me, in the 50s, guess how they got them to the prison system, or to the prison in Huntsville? Open trailers with a cage on it, going down 75. Now, can you imagine National Transportation Safety Board letting us do that now? So if it rained, they got wet. If it was hot, they got hot, you know. We have pictures of that. It's really interesting to see how they used to, how they move these people.
Those are all the pea farms you're referring to, right?
Well, I think the counties call them pea farm, but you know, like at East End, the last wardenship I had, we had almost 13,000 acres that we farmed. Yeah. You know, we had our own plant where all the corn we raised, all the maize we raised, we brought it to our granary, we made it up, that made feed for all our animals. I had 154,000 chickens, laying hens at one time. I had 6,700 sows. We had a breeder program there. We would, most of our pigs, we'd pig out about 13 little piglets every 90 days. I mean, it was just a baby-making machine.
Woodworking shops were phenomenal too.
I'm sorry?
Woodworking.
Oh, yeah.
Shops,
Yeah.
They made chairs for the legislature.
We still do.
Yeah, I know.
They still do. Okay, we still repair, they still repair buses for our school districts. We make desks, the wooden desks, they repair those. We still make the desks for the legislature, for most universities, modular furniture. Most of the mops and brooms were made there at the prison for the universities and schools. As good as that sounds, there's so much other things that affect the cost of keeping a prisoner in prison now. They're not as self-sufficient as they were at one time. The biggest things. The biggest thing was, or is, back in 1992, Texas got real tough on crime, and they built a large amount of prisons. I'm not soft on crime, but we built way too many prisons, in my opinion, okay? You know, when I came to work, there was 21,000 inmates. When I retired, there's 153,000, okay? There's 132,000 now locked up, okay? That's just in the prison system. That's not counting the county jails throughout the state. When we got tough on crime, they started giving longer sentences. Longer sentences mean people get older in prison. Older people have more health issues. They need more medical attention. And they're the only group of people in the United States that are constitutionally required to have medical. Okay? They are obligated to be taken care of, as they should be. Okay? Gets a little bit overboard sometimes with some of the things they do, but anyhow, neither is this. If a man's needs some dental care, we take care of we pull a tooth, do a filling. We don't put implants and all that stuff. You know, yes, sir.
Did Jim Willett see some of the rodeo?
He worked it. Yes, he was a correctional officer, and he worked up through sergeant, lieutenant. Captain, I believe, was the last rank he had when he was there in '86. Yes, sir. You had a question?
Yeah, I just imagine, were there any like mini inmate rodeo celebrities that were, let's go see Johnny Two-Step and watch him because he's the best of the.
Well, I'm sure there were. I was never been made aware of it, but you know, it was also a lot. Here's I thought was kind of interesting. I can't tell you how many ex-convicts I saw come back to a rodeo with a pretty little girl on her arm and walk right by the warden. Yeah, I mean that's the way, that's their mentality sometimes. Okay, but it was kind of somewhat of a convict reunion, kind of. You know, as much as they did in front of the warden, they did in front of the inmates. You know, oh, well, look who he hooked up with while he was out there. You know, it was a unique environment to be a part of, let me say the least.
When I think about, maybe there may be a question here, I don't know. But when I just think about it, starting in the 30s, that's like the depths of the Depression, and we were a much more agricultural state then.
Absolutely.
So like right now we think of hardened criminals, but these folks might have just been on, hard times and done, like a robbery or bootlegging. Or
it was.
About what refreshments were offered.
I can't tell you how many sentences that I have read from the 20s, in the 30s. They get 2 years for stealing a chicken. Well, they were probably just trying to feed their family. You know. Now they probably had some other things that aggravated it to get to that point. But yeah, there was a lot of people who were just trying to survive, I'm not justifying it, but that's probably what they did. The very first person that came to the prison was a horse thief from Fayette County. He came to the prison in 1849. He got his first cell partner 11 months later. 2 months after that, his cell partner tried to run off and shot and killed him. So he's back to being in a cell by himself, So, the Texas Prison Museum, let me just share this. We are not part of the prison system. I may have already said it. If I did, I'm sorry to be duplicitous. But we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We don't get any tax support. We don't want any tax support. We don't want anybody telling us what to tell, because there are some things that happened in the prison that was not pretty. But that's history. And we believe it's important to tell that history. I believe if you don't tell your history and keep it pure, you have a tendency to repeat it. And we never want to repeat some of the things that the prison system did at one time, okay? And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about convict leasing. That is something we never want to do ever again, is lease a group of inmates out to a capitalist, okay? At one time in the prison system, there was 2 guys from Galveston that leased the whole prison system. Everything. It was their responsibility to take care of it. It was their responsibility to pay the state. And then what happened was those people subcontracted out to people, and it just watered down and watered down. And the medical needs, the nutritional needs, the things that are necessary to take care of a human body, these people took shortcuts in the name of making money. And a lot of inmates lost their lives due to nutritional, bad housing, bad medical. So it was a black eye for the state of Texas, and finally the legislature outlawed it, and we never want to see that happen ever again anywhere in the United States, or anywhere else for that matter, even though it does happen in other parts of the world. We never want to see that again in our prison systems anywhere in the United States. The prison system, or excuse me, the prison museum though, we just tell the story of the prison system, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we've got some pretty unique artifacts in there from the rodeo. Like I said, the chariots are in there. We got some of the saddles and things that they wore. We got a lot of celebrity items in there. Golly, something as simple as what the judges used while they were on their saddles judging the convict cowboy, the leather pouches where they would judge the animal plus the cowboy, I mean, we try to keep as much authenticity to our display of the rodeo as we can. And there's just a lot of history there. So as far as the rest of the museum, we have some pretty interesting stuff. I know I'm kind of getting off sidetrack, if that's okay. Some of y'all may have heard a guy named Clyde Barrow, okay? Clyde Barrow used to run this part of the country, okay? Okay. Okay. Well, Clyde Barrow came to the penitentiary back when he was 18 years old. He had a pretty good record back when he was a youngster as a juvenile. And back in those days, they didn't have a classification system like you see today in the prison system, which takes in consideration a person's youth or his age, his height, his weight, his criminal record, things of that nature. And when he came to prison, they put him on Eastham. Now, Eastham was a very incorrigible prison. Okay, I mean, if there was a troublemaker, they went to Eastham. Even when I was there, we had 500 inmates that kept locked up in their cells at all times. You know, I had 2,472 inmates at one time, and but that's where he went. And everything I've read about him, even though he was basically a thug, he came out a rattlesnake. He was mad as hell at the state. He was mad at law enforcement in general. Came out and he hooked up with Bonnie. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that when he hooked up with Bonnie, Bonnie was married to another man. In fact, his name was Roy Thornton. And he was at Eastham when Clyde was in prison, okay? So the second thing I want to tell you about Mr. Simmons applies to Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker. When Clyde got out, hooked up with Bonnie, there was two inmates at the Eastham unit, a guy named Ray Hamilton and Joe Palmer. Raymond Hamilton was the number one crime suspect in the United States at the time. He vowed to come back and break out Ray Hamilton and Joe Palmer, and they did. They came to the Eastham unit while they were out in the field one day. They had come out the night before, put some guns underneath Bonnie and Clyde Bridge, which is still there, in a brush pile. They broke for the brush pile, got the guns out. In that escape, there was an officer who was shot and killed. They got in the car with Clyde and Bonnie, and they left. They didn't break out her husband. For some reason, he stayed back. Imagine that, okay? He later got killed 3 years later trying to escape. But anyhow, Bonnie and Clyde, when they left, Mr. Simmons was extremely upset about the fact that Raymond Hamilton was criminal number one in the United States. He broke from the prison system. And so he went to Maul Ferguson's. Y'all will remember the history of Maul Ferguson. Went to her, got permission to hire a retired Texas Ranger by the name of Frank Hamer, who was a very well-known Texas Ranger, extremely good lawman. He hired him, made him part of the prison system as a special investigator, and Mr. Simmons is the one who basically, he and Mr. Hamer is the one who composed that effort in bringing about Bonnie and Clyde's demise. And they did, as you know, in Glasdale, Louisiana. And I tell you that story for this reason. Mr. Simmons is primarily known for the rodeo, but he was one who actually brought about the demise of Bonnie and Clyde. To the fact that the Simmons family has given us and have provided to us on loan a pistol that was taken off of Bonnie's lap in the death car. We have it in the museum. It's a 1911 .45. It was made for a naval officer during World War I. A lot of Bonnie and Clyde's ammunitions came out of armories. They used to break into armory installations and get their weapons that way. But that's kind of the stuff we have in our museum. There's a lot of history there. I went and did a presentation back in August to the Texas Rangers, and I took that pistol with me. I got permission from the family to take it down there, and man, that was a popular exhibit. I mean, everybody wanted to have their picture. I mean, they were doing this, and they were doing that, and they were doing this, and I'm thinking, oh, Lordy mercy, you know. Yes, sir.
Of all the jobs that inmates do,
Yes, sir.
which are the ones that would lead better to rehabilitation and less recidivism?
in today's world, educating them about technology, about computers, because everything's going computers. Whether it is how to design software, how to do data entry, how to do computer repair. To me, that is probably the most popular one that I think is being pushed right now, because there's not a part of our society that computer doesn't touch. There are still basic vocational classes they can participate and get automotive, mechanical type stuff, whether it be gasoline or diesel. They haven't started doing electric. I don't think that's going to be, I think that's neither here nor there. The carpentry, you know, regardless of how good computers are going to be, we're still going to need plumbers. We're still going to need carpenters. We're still going to need concrete men. We're still going to need masons. I mean, those basic foundational jobs that we probably helped our fathers do or may have done as a career path is still necessary. And those are the things that will help these men stay out and these women. One of the things that I believe, people ask me, well, what is the thing that we can do to be more successful in getting our recidivism rate? And I'm going to tell you, being raised in a Christian home, and thank goodness, because I can see where I could have gone wrong, we've got to develop programming, which they've done now. They've got a lot of good programming there that gives us an opportunity to touch this person's heart. Not us, but God. And when you can change this, I'm a firm believer you can change the man or the woman, okay? I believe that with all my heart. You can educate a person, but if you just change this, you just made a smarter criminal, in my opinion, okay? So I'm a real believer in getting to a person's soul and to his heart. There are some really good programs. We have a lot of good religious Christian-based programs out there. We even have a Bible college at the Darrington unit where I used to be the warden at Darrington. That came after I left. A person can go in there and get a degree of theology. And a lot of these men have to have a certain amount of time, because once they get finished with that, then they dispense these men out and women to other prisons to be life coaches to those other men to bring them to Christ. So to me, that is a very worthwhile program that the system has, and they're seeing good results of that. But it's, you know, it's I wish I had the magic cure. I wish we could close every one of our prisons down, but that's a world of utopia that a group of people in this world live in. That's never going to happen, in my opinion, not until something comes along later on. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Mad scramble, 10 outlaw riders on 10 bad bulls, and it's one of the reasons why the Texas Prison Rodeo is called the wildest show on earth. The Texas Prison Rodeo got started back in 1931 when a handful of spectators joined a couple of dozen prison inmates and officials for an afternoon's rough and tumble on the prison baseball field here in Huntsville. There have been a lot of rodeos since those Depression days, and a lot of October Sundays like this one. An arena full of some of the roughest men and toughest stock that ever butted heads. And a standing room only crowd of better than 25,000 spectators. All right, here's the first section of the bareback bronc riding contest, and in chute number 5, our cowboy is Kermit Thomas with a horse called Little Ruby. Here's the boy whose hometown was originally New York, New York, and he's serving a 5-year term here. So, a cowboy from New York. Let's see. Kermit, look out, look out. Go on with it, Kermit. He survived that storm, I'll tell you for sure. I'll move down now to chute number 4 for Taylor Johnigan and Sunflower. Anybody ought to be able to ride a Sunflower. Hey, boy. Go on with it, number 14. Go on. Number 3 is Gilbert Flanagan with a horse called Quick Step. Here's a boy with a 45-year term from Dallas, Texas. Whip, 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 whip. Then we come to George Huff with a horse called Baldy. Can you get down on him, George? Just remember, anybody can ride him in there in that box. Take a firm grip on him, cowboy. Last chance in the bareback riding. He says outside. Let's see how it looks. Stay in there and ride. What you got, George? All right. Wow. Chute number 9, we go with Thomas Horace, a horse called the Great Divide. Groveton, Texas boy. Let's see what he can do now. Look at that. Yep. 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 Almost, not quite. Just think, you got a life term, and by the time you practice all that time, you'll win it all, boy. Okay, get the arena clear? Now, here's a nice one for the girls from Goree. How about it, boys in white? Let's say hello to the girls from Goree. Okay, now we've got a bunch of real tiny, small, gentle calves. We turn them out. All the girls have to do is just catch one and take it to the judge. That's all. Just that simple. Just a little simple contest for the girls. But hang on to what you got a hold of. That's the main thing. All right, take it to the judge. Hey. Turn him around. Now you go, maybe. Who's got what? Aha. Congratulations, you're a bunch of good sports, and we enjoyed it. Now then, we have teams of 3 of the boys. In each chute is a horse. All they do is turn the horse out, then they have to saddle him up and ride him down there to the judge. Real easy. It works just like that other one did. Now let's see how it looks. Just bring him out there, boys, and put a saddle on him and ride him up there. Whoa, somebody. Hey, look over here. Here's the boys that have won it 3 times in a row right over here on the east side of the arena. And boy, they're cinching up right now. Look out! Just did survive the storm. Once again, back to the chutes we go. This time for the saddle bronc riding contest. So we go to chute number 4, Bobby Horn, a horse called Mac the Knife. Here's another life-termer. His hometown was originally Clovis, New Mexico. One of our old-timers here. Take your time, but hurry every chance you get. By golly, Bobby. Everybody got bucked off. All right, chute number 3, Ray Sutter, with a horse called Rimrock. Hometown is Dallas, Texas. Hey, look out. Chute number 2 is O'Neill Browning with a horse called Sweeter Than Wine. Here's a live termer from Dallas. He's our leading money winner so far this year. And incidentally, in the time he's been here behind the walls, has won 6 top hand titles, more than any other cowboy. O'Neill Browning. Tell you what, I can't see it from here, but I'll bet you when he comes up, he's still got that cigarette stuck in his face. You better believe it. In chute 10, Bill Bailey from Porter, Texas, serving a 99-year term. The song Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home, doesn't mean a thing to him for 99 years. Go on, Bill. Whoop, boy. Number 12 is Rusty Huff. Out of chute number 8 with a horse called Hard Times. Here's a boy from Pampa, Texas. Let's see what happens. Now, Rusty, go on. Up, we're in trouble. Look out, look out, look out, look out, look out, look out. Head first, right out. Good boy. I hope all it did was ruin the hat. Well, lucky for him. Hey, I've missed the cowboy. Where's James Thompson? James. Someone said he'd gone to take a bath. You can't take a bath till after the show. James, where are you? James, get out of that bathtub. James, James. Boy, you ought to be glad you're not still in that tub. We're in trouble now. I'll tell you for sure. Somebody, whoa. Maybe. And once again, we're going to bring the girls from Goree in. Now, this isn't as rough as that other contest, honest, ladies and gentlemen. All we got here is just a bunch of greased pigs in the back of this thing here. And all the girls have to do is catch a pig, put him in a sack, and take him to the judge. It's pig sacking time. Now, who's got a pig? I know what you girls got in here for. Well, I'll say one thing for you three girls that just tried there. You ain't in here for stealing pigs, I know that. Well, once again, congratulations, girls. You did a good job. You are a good sport. These inmate cowboys and cowgirls are out after that prize money, all right. But they're also risking life and limb for some other benefits that the prison rodeo makes possible. The ticket money from each performance of the prison rodeo is put to work in the Department of Corrections Education and Recreation Fund. And it provides for a lot of extras that might not otherwise be available to the men and women behind the walls. Some of this money helps provide teaching aids and supplies for comprehensive educational programs, including a complete 12-grade school system that operates behind the walls. Funds are provided for libraries, for magazine and newspaper subscriptions, and some of this money helps provide material and supplies for an up-to-date vocational educational program, providing instruction and practical experience in fields such as auto mechanics, electronics, and key punch operation. This rodeo ticket money supplements funds for a college-level educational program that permits inmate students to earn credits and degrees while serving time. This income also supplements medical care for inmates, helping to provide eyeglasses, hearing aids, and first-class dental care. It also allows for medical specialists and cosmetic surgery, and even artificial limbs for handicapped inmates. Rodeo funds are put to work helping to build chapels and providing for religious services at each of the state's 14 prison units. And at holiday time, some of this money is used to supplement menus, ensuring that inmates enjoy turkey, dressing, and all the traditional fixings. Your ticket money goes toward the purchase and maintenance of recreational equipment and the operation of recreation programs and team sport leagues on each of the prison units. It provides for inmate entertainment, making it possible for inmates to view first-run motion pictures. And it helps to pay for the musical instruments and musical training, allowing inmate musicians to make their contribution here at the rodeo and at other events during the year. All these things, all these benefits are available to the men and women behind the walls because of your support of the roughest and wildest show on earth, the Texas Prison Rodeo. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take time out for fun and games. All we have down here in the chute is a Brahma bull, and tied between his horns is a tobacco sack. The boy that gets that tobacco sack gets $50. So, boys, a $50 bull on his way for you. Help yourself to the sack and win 50. Just like that. So all you got to do, just walk up there and get the sack. Just walk up to him and get the sack, boys. You don't have to keep the bull, just you can give him back, just get the sack. Boys keep running that circle around there, they'll wind him up and somebody will get it. Madian kicks, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Sneak up on him, boys, that's the way. Fellas, gang him. Somebody's going to get it. It may be in the end, but someone's going to get it. Wrong end, fellas. Man. Just walk up to him and get the sack, boys. Or let him walk up to you. What'd you say? Anybody want 50 bucks? This is the last Sunday, boys. You better get after it. Got 11 months to go before we can do it again. Don't be afraid of him. He was raised on milk. That man wants it. He don't want it that bad, though. Didn't get it after being whirled around like that. Hey, he got it. He got it. Back to the chute and the second section of bareback bronc riding. Remember, boys, this is your last chance to finish in the money. You're supposed to go out in the front of the chute and take the horse with you. Okay. Now, for the boys in the red shirts, ladies and gentlemen, another little gentle contest. We have some nice, gentle cows down here, and we're going to let all the boys have a cow and try to milk her. They come down here, all the cows have a rope around their neck. All they have to do is just take hold of that rope, take the cow out into the arena, milk a little milk into a pop bottle, and then take it to the judge by the red post up there on the east side of the arena. Yes, sir, a bunch of contented cows. Of course, they're contented because they've never been milked yet. Okay, boys, swing your gates open and get your cow. We couldn't have a barrel race for the girls from outside the walls without having one for the girls from inside the walls, could we? folks. Another edition of the wildest show on earth, the Texas Prison Rodeo. These inmate cowboys and cowgirls spend 11 months a year thinking and planning, then spend the month of October giving all they've got for the prize money, the educational and recreational benefits, and especially for you, our audience. We hope you enjoyed our show and their efforts. We're sure you did. Don't forget, the wildest show on earth, the Texas Prison Rodeo, comes your way each and every Sunday of each and every October from right here at the Rodeo Arena in Huntsville. Why not come out next time and see for yourself?
This would be your rodeo announcer wishing you the very best of everything and a very pleasant good afternoon to you all.